Hello everybody and welcome back to a new video. My name is Sarah and today we are going to be going over my very ambitious October TBR. Now, when I say very ambitious, I'm not even joking. I usually only read like 5 to 7 books a month, and so usually I plan my TBRs to be about 5 to 7 books. But I wanted to do a themed TBR since it's October for kind of spooky autumnal themed books, and I just got so excited about like this theme and picking out the books that fit this theme on my TBR cart that I couldn't like figure out what I actually wanted to narrow down and read. So I have 10 books on this TBR. So obviously I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get to all of them, especially because I will be traveling during the first week in October, but we'll see how many of these I get to and kind of which ones I end up actually picking up. I'll be kind of interested to see that at the end of the month actually, because I'm very, very excited about all of these. I just love the spoopy Halloween, cold, creepy, uncanny kind of atmospheres of books. It's one of my favorites, so I'm really looking forward to all of these. So these aren't going to be in any particular order. They're literally just going to be me pulling them off of the stack, and the stack was organized based on like the size of the books. So it's no particular order. So the first book that I have that I want to read in October is actually going to be an audiobook. It's one that my brother has recommended to me multiple times, and I did tell him that, you know, I was wanting to read it, but I am back on my book buying ban, as long as, you know, the book is not a sequel or from a book box. But I had the genius idea that I have a subscription to Scribd, and this book happened to be an audiobook available on Scribd, and that is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. And since I'm going to be traveling during the first week, I do tend to get kind of motion sick in moving vehicles of any sort. Planes are kind of hit or miss for me, so it'll be a good one to pick up if the motion sickness ends up kicking in. I actually don't know too terribly much about the plot specifically of this book. I just know that I've heard nothing but good things about it. My brother loved it, and I've heard several other people say that they really loved it. It's a young adult novel. I'm not sure if it would be like horror or fantasy or thriller. I'm not entirely sure what genre it fits in, but I know that it deals with a transgender boy from a family who, on the Day of the Dead, their kind of family members come into these abilities that they have and that are assigned by gender, and so he, on his like coming of age Day of the Dead, he gets assigned the wrong ability, and that's kind of the basic idea and just kind of basically what I know about this, but I'm really looking forward to it because, like I said, I've heard nothing but good things. And then I'd also like to get to In the House in the Dark of the Woods by Laird Hunt. This is a very short book, so I'm pretty sure I will end up picking this up and squeezing it in somewhere, but I'm actually going to read the back of this because it's very vague, and I just kind of know basically that it's supposed to be like a fever dream in the middle of the woods. But it says, in this magical and frightening tale of colonial America, nothing is quite as it seems. A wife gone missing may in fact have fled her stifling and abusive home. The inviting splendor of new American wilderness may in fact be an orchestration by a malevolent force. Women who lack both voice and sovereignty may seek freedom at the price of damnation. Set against the eerie, dangerous world of bygone New England, In the House in the Dark of the Woods is a historical encounter unlike any of you read in a novel you'll not soon forget. So, definitely sounds creepy. I love the cover. I'm really looking forward to this one. Another cover, which is absolutely gorgeous, is A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. This is the Owl Crate edition, and like, look at these silver edges. Oh, I just love them so much. But this is set in an all-girls boarding school, so it's gonna be like a dark academia, supernatural-esque novel. It's set in an all-girls boarding school, and basically this school has a history of like witchcraft, and there's kind of this infamous murder that happened where 5 girls like decades ago were murdered. And so in present day we follow 2 girls who want to kind of look into these murders again, because one of them is a prodigal novelist, and so she's wanting to kind of write about these murders in her second book. But while they are investigating the history behind the murders and the school itself, history starts to repeat itself. This one just came out, I think, like a month or 2 ago. I haven't heard too many people talk about it, but I'm really looking forward to it just because it sounds super just interesting. It sounds like a good YA Dark Academia book, but I'm really hoping that I end up liking it because I'm really excited about the premise. And then another book I'm wanting to get to in October is more of like a historical gothic murder mystery, and that is The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. Now this is set in the 1600s and it's all set aboard a ship, and we follow 3 main characters. We follow a famous detective who is being accused of a crime that we don't really know if he actually committed or not. And then he has his faithful bodyguard with him, and then there's a noblewoman who kind of has her own little secrets and why she's on this ship. And so kind of the first night that they're sailing on this ship, really strange, uncanny things start happening, and then an ominous voice tells them that by the end of their journey there will be 3 unholy miracles that occur, followed by a massive slaughter. And so the characters are kind of racing against time to figure out what the heck is happening, and if they have a devil on the ship with them. I've heard that this is really good. I saw this recommended by Meg from Meg with Books. It's kind of a chunkier book, and so it might be a little bit of a slower paced one, but I'm really hoping that it's as atmospheric as the synopsis makes it sound like it's going to be. So it's been a while since I've read a murder mystery. They're kind of like hit or miss for me, but I'm really hoping that this one is a hit for me. And of course it wouldn't be one of my own TBRs if there wasn't at least one fantasy novel in this book, and that is The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. So I actually just saw Becca from Becca in the Books talk about this on one of her more recent videos. I think it's the one where she was talking about like, if you like this book then you'll like this one. And I had this one on my cart, and initially I did not think that it was supposed to be kind of like a dark, creepy book. Like it does sound kind of like it would be, but I didn't initially think that it would be like a fall vibe book until I heard her talk about it. So we follow Alice and her mother. They've kind of hopped around from place to place through all of Alice's childhood, and they've never really stayed in the same place until Alice's grandmother, who is kind of this reclusive author of these dark fairy tales that are really hard to come by because there was like limited prints of them, passes away. And then relatively soon after that, Alice's mother disappears, and she is left with a note saying, "Don't go to the Hazelwood," which is the Hazelwood is the name of her grandmother's estate, where she used that as kind of like the setting of her fairy tales. And so Alice goes to her grandmother's estate to find her mother and figure out what the heck is going on. And Becca said from there it spirals into one long fever dream. And that is exactly what I am looking for in terms of like uncanny books. And so I am looking forward to this one. She's the only one that I've actually seen talk about it. And so she seemed to really like it, so I'm hoping that I do too. And then I actually have one of my most anticipated releases of 2021 on this TBR, and that is House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. Now I actually first heard about this book before it came out by Samantha Shannon, one of my favorite authors, because she had gotten an arc, and she actually has a blurb on the back here. I'll read it to you because I trust her word. It says, "In House of Hollow, Crystal Sutherland turns her razor-sharp imagination to new new horizons and proves once again the words blossom at her command. This story will steal up your spine, slip beneath your skin, and stick to you like honey. So, I've never read a Crystal Sutherland novel, but I'm trusting Samantha Shannon's word. When I first heard about it from her and heard like kind of what it was about, I was immediately like, oh, I'm so excited and I need this. And it came out earlier this year, and for whatever reason I just haven't actually like picked it up off my cart, but this month I'm really hoping to get to it. So we follow the three Hollow sisters, and a decade ago they disappeared off the street and then were returned to that same spot a month later looking completely unharmed, and they didn't remember anything of like what happened to them over that month of disappearance. But when they'd come back, their eyes had changed color and their hair had changed color, and weird kind of uncanny things started happening around them. And so now we're 10 years in the future and one of the sisters goes missing again. And so the other two sisters are trying to figure out where their third sister is and how this starts to reveal itself that it's tied up in their disappearances from 10 years ago. And it sounds like it's very much filled with a lot of supernatural, creepy things. As you can see, the cover is gorgeous, but also quite unsettling at the same time. So I am really hoping that this lives up to the expectation that I built up in my head for it. And then I also have a dark academia novel that has been making its rounds across multiple social media platforms in the book community, and that is The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. Now this is an independently published book, so I'm really excited to see like an indie published book make it big and make a huge splash in the community. So in this book there's the Alexandrian Society. It's kind of this secret underground society that cultivates all of the lost knowledge from lost civilizations, and this includes like magical abilities and magical knowledge. And every decade they pick 6 people from around the world to then pull into the society to be kind of caretakers of this library. I love when half my footage deletes itself and I have to re-record it. Alright. So in this one we're following Atlas Blakely as he recruits 6 people from, I'm guessing like around the world, that have quite uncanny abilities in order to kind of compete for spots in this decade's recruitment phase. And basically 5 of them will make it out alive. And I've heard an overwhelming positive opinion throughout the book community on this book. This is the first in, I think it's a trilogy. I know it's going to be a series, but this is the first one, and as far as I'm aware this is the only one that's been published so far. But as far as like specifics on this book, I really haven't heard much, but it's definitely piqued my interest because I've heard so much about it, and it's kind of got that like secret society theme that I really enjoy. So I'm quite interested to see kind of what this is all about. And then the next book that I have on this list is actually one that I had been highly anticipating, but then upon it being published, it had like very polarizing opinions throughout the community, so I'm a little nervous about it. And that is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. This is a book that seems like people either love it or they absolutely hate it. So I'm really nervous about it because I was definitely looking forward to it. This is kind of supposed to be like a dark academia murder mystery kind of psychological thriller, and we're following a group therapist who kind of works, I don't know if she works at Cambridge or like near Cambridge, but there's this group of female students that are like obsessed with this one professor, and they call themselves the Maidens. And pretty soon, one day, one of them ends up being murdered, and the group therapist is convinced that the professor is the culprit. However, he has an alibi, and nobody else thinks that he's the killer. So she kind of like loses a lot of credibility because she's very pushy about this. And then pretty soon another student ends up being murdered from this group of maidens. And so the group therapist kind of goes down this spiral of obsession to kind of prove that the professor is the killer. And I guess there's also supposed to be something to do with the rites of Persephone and kind of her journey to the underworld. Like, I don't know if the themes are just supposed to keep popping up or like the story. I don't know. It says it's supposed to have something to do with that. So yeah, like I said, I'm really nervous about this. I was looking forward to it until, you know, all of the big reviews started coming out when it got published, and now I'm nervous, but I am interested to see kind of where my opinion falls. And then this next book I had been putting off purposely in order to wait and read it this month, and that is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily N. Danforth. I am definitely looking forward to this one. So this is set in an all-girls boarding school, and we follow two separate timelines. We follow early 1900s when there are a series of deaths at this school that all have very mysterious circumstances. Some of them kind of revolve around this like couple of girls that are obsessed with like this author, and then there are hornets involved. They're just very strange circumstances, and then the school shortly after closes down. And then we also follow present day, where a horror movie kind of reenacting these historical events of like all these murders is being filmed on the campus of the school. And so we kind of, our actresses that are playing the two main characters kind of start seeing things from the past, I guess. I don't know. It says that the past and the present start to intertwine as this movie is being filmed. And so I'm really, really excited about it. It's also kind of a multimedia book. See if I can just find, like, there's your typical prose, but then there's like, I'm not gonna be able to find one. Here we go. There's like artwork in it as well. So yeah, I'm kind of really interested in it. It's definitely a bit chunkier, but I've heard really good things about it. I know Em over at Ghost Reads absolutely loves it. A while ago, she had said that this was kind of in her top of her favorite reads of 2021, so I'm hoping that I get to say the same. And now, while Plain Bad Heroines, I'm almost guaranteed to end up picking up this month, this last book that I have on my list is actually one that I'm least likely to pick up, but I wanted to include it on the list anyway because it fits the autumnal theme, and that is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Now, this is kind of your pinnacle of dark academia. It's a much beloved book by many, many people. It's considered a modern classic. What are you doing there, miss? What are you doing? I had tried reading it like a year or two ago. I got about 50 pages in and I could not stand it. I ended up having to put it down with the intent of picking it back up eventually because I wanted to be able to give it another solid try. I just could not stand the pretentious writing style, and like I like flowery pretentious writing, but this was too much even for me. And so I'm like really hoping that if I go into it again with the mindset and knowing like the writing style, I will hopefully be able to make my way through it and actually form like an opinion on the whole book instead of the first 50 pages, especially because it is such a well-loved book. I actually don't know too much like detail wise of what the story is about. I know that like we basically follow this group of like 5 or 6 students that get into this one professor's very elite exclusive program that has kind of unconventional teaching methods. And so the students and the teacher kind of form this like really tight-knit, almost cultish group dynamic, and it gets really messy, and like obsession and just weird, messy relationships get involved, and eventually there's a murder that happens. And that's, you know, kind of the general theme of dark academia, and I'm pretty sure it's, you know, thanks to this book, and If We Were Villains as well, which I did really love If We Were Villains, so I, you know, would like to say that I love this one too, but we're gonna eventually give it a second shot, and I just figured I'd put it on this list in hopes that maybe I would end up in the mood for, you know, a challenge at some point this month. So those are all the books that are on my very ambitious October TBR. I'm hoping to get to as many of these as possible, but you know, chances are I'm not going to get to all of them just because I am not a super fast reader, but we will see which ones I end up getting to. Let me know down in the comments below if you've read any of these or if you have any recommendations for kind of autumnal themed books that maybe you have on your October TBR. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you consider sticking around and subscribing, but as always, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!